Hi, guys. Hello, and welcome to the fifth episode of the Women in Nautica podcast. Here I have with me Laurie Foulon from the Super Yacht Life Foundation. Laurie, welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no problem. Looking forward to having somebody who has a great background in both the super yacht segment and a bit of sustainability and community management and marketing. I think we will cover a lot of very interesting topics today.
Look forward to telling you more about it.
Yeah, so for the listeners who don't know you yet, could you just tell us a bit about yourself? So, your education, where you started, and how it led you to the position where you're currently in.
Sure. So my name is Laurie. I was born in the south of France, and I lived most of my adult life in a different country than my home country, actually. Interestingly, I lived in Canada for half a year, and then I moved to Australia, and I lived in Australia for 8 years, which is why I may not sound that much French anymore. I've been in the industry for over 10 years now. And I started it because I studied in Nice in a business school, and that led me to discover the industry in Monaco, actually. So I went straight to the one of the biggest hub of the industry, and have worked in charter management and marketing for most of my career before joining my current project with Subyot Life Foundation and Water Revolution Foundation.
Okay, interesting. So, do you think that starting in Monaco must have been a great, of course, starting position and a great place to be because Monaco is the center? Do you think there are any other emerging centers that could be maybe the future spots if people want to get more acquainted with the super yacht industry, or is Monaco at the time being the number one?
I think, well, that's a great question because Monaco is always the one that we all look up to. It hosts one of the biggest shows of the industry, as B2B anyway. But we often forget that there's a lot of B2C happening in our industry as well. We engage with so many people outside of the industry. And to me, I mean, I left for Australia when I was 21 and I was still studying at the time. So it was kind of my gap year or my last year of studies. And my thesis, my master thesis, was actually on Australia as a third world destination for super yachts because I really believed at the time that it was going to happen and the yachts were going to migrate there, you know, as soon as I landed, pretty much. But it didn't happen in that short time. But I think for me, having observed the movement of yachts around the world from a charter perspective, I think there's going to be more hubs, and there are more hubs outside of the normal run of the mill, let's say, of the south of France. We're seeing just many more yachts now, and it's getting really crowded. And a lot of clients are looking to go further afield. And I think that's going to open up, in general, the travel industry is looking more at remote, exclusive experiences that no money can buy, effectively, things where you can go and discover nature or have, some specific experiences. And I think clients will hopefully look more into that. So for me, I see like, yeah, Australia is still a little bit far away, but there's a lot more yachts there in the past 10 years, for example. And I think places like we've seen Greece, Turkey, even Croatia grow up a lot in the past, 5, 10 years. And I think that's very exciting because it makes everyone, discover new destinations for ourselves as well.
Yeah, true. I agree. And I have to agree with you on the more adventurous and explorative tourism
Mm.
part. We see now a lot of retreats, a lot of hikes, so very specific packages that either focus on the well-being of the client or really on the adventurous, explorative part where you see bare nature and you forget the conventional tourism as it's known. But you writing the thesis on Australia, it's very interesting. So can you maybe share some insights which you got, maybe how the existing infrastructure is, what were your predictions, and in general, what would be your vision maybe for boating, either recreational or in the super yacht segment in Australia?
Yes, it's a long, like it's an old thesis like that I did. It's quite a few years ago now. So what I wrote at the time was that Australia became sort of like went on the map of super yacht chartering because it hosted the Olympic Games at the time. And so the government had to invest, had no choice but invest into infrastructure. They developed like a super yacht marina, which was where I did my first internship actually. So it was really interesting to see it in real life. And it's nothing like what we know in Europe. Literally a few weeks ago, they developed a second super yacht marina. I'm talking about Sydney Harbour there specifically. So it's on the east coast of Australia where most people live. And literally a few weeks ago, they launched their second super marina that is a little bit more lifestyle, like, with the restaurants and things for crew to do ashore and things like that. And we're in 2024. So it's very interesting for me to see it as a microcosmos almost. It's like a micro development, but at the same time, it has so many refit yard options along the coast in Australia, but also like on the west coast, which is less known. And they do have shipyards there. Like we know eco yachts. We have, some bigger shipyards as well that produce yachts on the land of Australia. So it's always super interesting for me as well to reflect on that when I did my thesis coming from the south of France and Monaco to see what could be implemented there. And I just thought it was everything had to be done, but everything could be done in a better way as well. So it's great to have seen it growing. Now they have marinas up north as well that can host yachts closer to the Great Barrier Reef. And also that allows the marina managers to manage the impact of the yachts and the visitors on, protected areas around the world. I would say that's one of the roles of marinas, in my opinion. And I would say as well, it's been very interesting to see how charter brokers or even sales brokers have turned differently to different lands because Australia has a history of having quite a lot of wealth, from the mining industry. Unfortunately, coal and mining is one of the biggest industries down there. And there's always been historically a lot of wealth, but the Australian culture prevents people from showing off like Italians or French or, more European ultra high net worth individuals would show off their wealth and be proud of it. So yeah, it's been very interesting for me. I had clients walk into the office when I was living in Sydney with holes in their t-shirts and no shoes on. And, some of the wealthiest people of the country. So I think the culture of boating down there for me is a lot more down to earth. I mean, we're still talking about super yachting, so it still has an elite culture to it, but it's a lot more down to earth in terms of people relationship and considering the environment and just enjoying the nature for what it is, really being on the ocean for what it is and not only for backing up into a busy harbor, for example, alongside a million of other yachts. So yeah, I would say that's the highlights.
Yeah, very, very insightful. So, number one is breaking biases about outfits and, in general, the overview of a rich super yacht owner, be it
Yeah.
either female or male. And then is the second part about nature restoration and preservation. I think that's super important, maybe also for the surrounding part, the in the
Mhm.
Pacific Ocean on the close to Australia. So yeah, yeah, very insightful. Is there anywhere we can read the thesis or it's not public?
I I haven't published it. I'm not sure how good it is still relevant nowadays, but I could consider it. Yeah.
Yeah, why not? I think that maybe some listeners would enjoy that. And of course, stalking a bit through your LinkedIn profile, I noticed that marketing is a bit of an underlying motive in your career history. So, can you maybe share one of the biggest marketing projects that you tackled so far and how did you do it?
Perfect question following what I just said. So, because I live so long in Australia, one of the biggest marketing projects for me is marketing the destination as a super yacht destination. So it tackles to, it links to what I just said before. When I arrived and I was still going to boat shows, I went to the Antigua Charter Show, MIBA Charter Show, which was in Genoa at the time, from Australia in the first few years. And people would look at me going, I have no idea what to do in Australia. The charter brokers, I'm saying, literally had no idea even situating it on the map sometimes, I have to say. So it was a challenge and an opportunity that we saw in the company and that allowed me to develop a whole lot of marketing materials that no one had developed before. And it was really interesting because we did that with the tourism bodies of the Australian government. So we gathered a lot of details and we ourselves went into tours, lucky us, to learn more about it and really help the destinations. So different cities, different ports, but also super remote places that maybe have never had a super yacht before, and how would we do it, and how would we bring the clients there, what type of transport do we have to think about, what type of food is available, and what kind of experiences can we also offer there. Because when clients are on a yacht, we all know that the yacht is not sufficient itself, it's just a platform. So it's a platform for experiences, and we helped develop that side of the market. I would like to think that we played a big part in make it what it is today, that it's a lot more recognized. And now you can talk to shows, to charter brokers, and they will know what it's all about because we did so many webinars, so much repetition of, even the classics of what Sydney Harbour is like. It's the harbour, but it's not Port Hercule in Monaco. We're not talking about a harbour with hundreds of yachts docked there. We're talking about a massive harbour with there's beaches and there's like stunning places with no one else around. So I really enjoyed it as a marketing project because it was something new and something that no one had done before. And the link between the travel, high-end travel, and our industry, which had not been done before in my experience in my own career, I really, really loved it. Linking the two and making them really part of one.
Nice. Great. And maybe can you share what type of content did you find most effective while doing this project?
Video. Video was definitely one. We had VR. It was the beginning. I think it's like 8 to 10 years ago. So it was the beginning of VR glasses as well. So I would travel to the Biba Chowder Show with my big VR sets and, almost forcefully put them onto brokers who didn't want to know what it was all about, didn't know what it was all about. And the VR sets had key Australian destinations. So it would take you on a beach, it would take you on a helicopter or things like that. And it was incredible the response that we had. Some brokers lost balance because there was so much going on into the experience as well. But yeah, I think that was one of the most effective one, as well as storytelling. So bringing, maybe a crew member with me that was at the show and like just getting them to tell the stories as well of what it's like down there. And I'm talking about Australia, but it was part of the South Pacific initiative, really. So it was all the islands, Fiji, New Zealand, Tahiti even, all work together. And their tourism offices down there are just hyperactive. They're incredibly resourceful in that way.
So, although it was 8 to 10 years ago, I believe it's still the same. So, still, video is king, and what you said, storytelling, and in the
Hmm.
version of testimonials. So, when people give an honest review and an honest opinion, and then that's the way how you basically gain the trust of your followers, clients, or whomever you're approaching.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say face to face as well is very, very important in that way because you can do all the online meeting that you can, but there's nothing that replaces like even casual conversation on a dock during the show or talking about your own experience. And, I started developing an Australian accent as I was living there as well. So people would start questioning me just without me having to, let's say, sell anything. So yeah, just personal life experience really is the key to, how did you say, like transforming people's opinions.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of us lost that touch with COVID
Hmm.
because basically, at least for 2 years, we were sticking to online meetings and simply meeting people online and discussing things via email. But now I think that has changed again back to normal, where all of us
Yeah.
are very happy to go to boat shows, conferences, or any other events in person.
Hmm. Absolutely agree.
And within your work, you also got introduced to LCA. So, can you share a bit how that went for you? So, maybe to explain to the listeners what LCA is and where did you have the opportunity to work with LCA?
Hmm. So LCA stands for Life Cycle Assessment, and it's basically a method to verify solutions who have better environmental performance. So it's very comparing a product or solutions to what is business as usual. So we basically the method is ISO certified. So we compare, there's a benchmark that has been set up, and any product or solution is compared to that benchmark and effectively evaluated and certified as doing things in a better way. Maybe one day we'll evaluate people that way as well, but we all already do in some sense in a social way. But basically what it's trying to achieve and what it already achieves is quite a strong, reliable method now. It's how a product impacts its environment from its cradle to grave, we say. So what that means is from the concept, from the design of a product, if we're talking about yachts, is from the design of a yacht to its end of life cycle. So what happens when a yacht stops working? Luckily, we're in an industry where yachts have a really long life span, but still we're still working on how do we dismantle them. There's so many materials that go in there. There's so many materials that are not recyclable, that are not reusable, that are not compostable either. So the LCA assessment method aims to reduce that impact and optimize the way that products are designed and built in today's society as a whole. I came across it when I started working with the Water Revolution Foundation in 2023 for the Hub of Sustainability in the Monaco Yacht Show. So that's been taking place every September and it's just taken place for the third year this September, 2024. And it's been really efficient in showcasing the solutions, the verified solutions that are already I've already proved that they're better for the environment in the industry, from the building to the design to the operating of yachts, and really trying to optimize, change the mindsets as well, and also work with business leaders to understand where the opportunities are to make the industry a leader in environmental transition as well. So yeah, it's been very interesting journey, and I think it's a very interesting process for anyone who's got a solution or a product to just assess, are we doing the right thing or are we just greenwashing? It's a great way to avoid that.
Yeah, I agree. And do you think that boat builders are aware of the importance? So, what is the level of awareness for this tool in the industry at the moment?
It's very well known in the industry, and so I work as well with the Water Revolution Foundation, which is a foundation, non-profit foundation based on very output-driven initiatives to educate and guide the industry from shipbuilders, shipyard builders, obviously, and designers, product manufacturers, and the supply chain, as well as crew members and captains and engineers on board. So while the method is still, well, has proven that it's very reliable and strong, I think the industry is very open to learning more about it. And we host a lot of workshops to that effect in the industry. So I think it's getting better known. I think shipyards are opening up to including it in their supply chain as well, more and more. And I think the key element is accompanying them through the transition, because if you impose a system on someone, it's going to create a lot more work in the beginning to adopt it in any system or process in any industry. So I think it's key when you have guidelines, when you can, accompany the process and the progress and also measure it. And LCA is a great tool to that effect as well, I think.
And do you think we still need to do a lot to raise the awareness at the end customer? Because in the end customer is the one who decides of all the options and variants and everything regarding its vessel.
Yeah, I think there's progress in that. We're learning as an industry collective, I say, to communicate about sustainability better. I do think there's still progress that needs to be made on that, because we can sometimes tell facts a little bit more than going in depth. So like we need to go more in depth into what we announce. When we announce a fact, or we announce that the product is better, or we announce that we're having less impact of on the environment, okay, but we need to prove what is the method behind it, because then as an industry collective, we're submitted to greenwashing. And we know in the Netherlands, for example, KLM has been already sued for bad greenwashing practices into their publicity advertising to consumers, so to the end consumers. I don't know if we'll see that in yachting one day, but certainly I think we've got the power to drive that before any of us get sued. And I think the voice that we can have as yachting is because we're so also close to the ocean. It kind of, makes the most sense that we can relay that the way that we design and construct and operate our products to nature. And that's the best way to go forward. And we call that regenerative sustainability, really.
Yeah, exactly. And when it comes to greenwashing, I think everyone nowadays sees the benefit in marketing of saying something in the sense, yes, our product is 50% more efficient than the competitor's one, or our product emits 90% less CO2 or anything of the sort. But in the end, it really comes to proving that technically and, of course, keeping the trust of the client and the end user, because if you lose that, then yeah, you lose everything basically.
Yeah. And I think people are generally interested in knowing that if it's communicated in the right way. Some of us may not know enough and therefore it's communicated in a way that is, oh, we're gonna communicate in a soft way because we don't want to open up the subject on it or we don't want to bring shame to the clients. But I really think that if it's done in a smart, again, like guided way, people are generally interested in these topics. They're, we're all business leaders. They're people who are the smartest on the planet, some of our clients. So they have to include these processes in their own businesses as well. There's no choice, with reporting coming up and all the new regulations. We're going to have to play a bigger role, I think,
Yes, and play by the rules if we want to
as
keep
well.
everything as it is and even make it better. So this brings me a bit to the next question, and it's related to the yachting industry, of course, and a bit about Monaco, which we talked before. So what do you think would be the main entrance doors to get into the industry? Some individuals think that the yachting segment is quite gated, others think it's quite easily accessible. So what's your take on that?
I think it comes down to people and it comes down to being smart about who you meet. I don't think we're getting community because there's so many opportunities to meet people. I got my first internship going to the Cannes boat show with my dad actually on a CV that was mostly empty at the time. And just, daring to go and talk to people, asking questions. What is your job? What do you do on a daily basis? Now I'm talking about the office-based side of the industry. Of course, we've got the whole onshore, no, not offshore, offshore, on board side of the industry. So crew and captains, which a lot of them walk the docks, but I think a lot of them also find recruitment agencies. That's very set up in our industry and very well structured, I would say. But from the office-based perspective, so all the businesses, there's just so many opportunities in the industry, whether you want to be a salesperson, marketing person, a technical engineer, you can work in a shipyard, you can paint yachts, you can weld. There's just so many departments that are covered, so many skills, like this crafts, the whole craft industry, the whole wood carving industry. There's just so much. So I think for me, it's an industry of people, and I know a lot of us say that, but it's very much something that I feel. And personally, it's what drove me to it as well. It's an industry of passion. Most of us have a relationship with boating or yachting or sailing or, even swimming in the ocean in some sort of way in a daily life, I would say. And I think learning about it may be difficult sometimes, but now with social media, there's just no more excuse. There's so many YouTube channels and there's so many. I'm not going to talk about below deck because that's not the way to learn about it so much. But why not? It's a way of getting more acquainted with how the industry is perceived as well. And I think that's the best way to get in is, yeah, again, through people and relation, or just being curious about it
And there's always Chat GPT for anything
as
else
well.
you don't know.
Of course.
So you also said that it's really important to approach the right people and talk to the right people.
Hmm.
Referring to that, what would be your best networking tip? So is it meeting people in person on boat show? Is it reaching out through LinkedIn? Is it something else?
I'm a big believer in LinkedIn, and I think you are too because you went through my profile before this episode,
Yeah,
as I would do too. I think LinkedIn helps you understand the depth of the job descriptions, basically what do people do in this industry. And my networking tip, personally, when I go to a networking tip, I get quite nervous because it's not my strength. I'm quite introverted in that way, my personality. So what I've done over the years and what I've learned to do is to ask questions that were not related to someone's job directly. So, we often approach people, how are you? Or what do you do for, what do you do? What do you do for work? For me, I have found that questions that were a little bit deeper helped people remember me better. So something like, what is one of your favorite things to do after work these days? Or what did you do the past weekend? Or, if you could volunteer for an organization, what would that be? And what is a cause that you would support? Things like that, but also making it light and fun. Because at the end of the day, as I just said, like we're just people trying to create relationships between us. And I think work and talking about professionalism is very important, but in my opinion, that comes first. That comes second, sorry, after you have created like a basis for understanding and where people might come from. Also, talking about background or culture of history, I mean, we all come from a lot of different countries and cultures in this industry. I think that's one of the wealthiest aspects of it as well. And there's so many opportunities to talk about so many things in general. So yeah, that would be my way of being remembered because being a business card is not enough.
I agree. And I love what you said, basically creating meaningful and deep relationships to boost networking and in the end finding ways how to create business together. And you also lead the World Boating Day. Can you tell us why such an initiative is important for the boating industry?
Yes. So World Boating Day was set, well, it links very well to what we were talking about before, as in entering the industry can be seen as being guarded sometimes, and we're maybe not good enough at communicating with universities or young students about the pathways to the industry, both onshore and offshore, I think. So it was one of the pain points that we identified at the Super Life Foundation, and we created basically World Boating Day to make it a more accessible and understood industry. So it was created as a giant international open day where we're trying to make the industry, leisure boating and yachting and super yachting industry all together, claim a date. So every year we want to celebrate boating. We want anyone who has a boat, anyone who works in the industry, anyone who is close to the industry by some way, shape, or form to celebrate it. And it's just a fun way for all of us to not go to a boat show and talk about making business together, but welcome new people in the industry, as well as creating new and positive stories in front of the media. Because that's one of the second pain points that we identified, or the second pillars of why World Boating was born, is telling better stories about our industry in the media. We are subject sometimes to a lot of drama and a lot of negative stories, let's say, especially in the higher end of the industry. But the reality is we're people and we're humans passionate about it. And we are all fed, feed families. We have lives thanks to the industry and because we're passionate about it, just like the owners and the operators of those yachts are. So the concept of World Boating Day was born from that, and we had the first edition this year in May, which you joined, thankfully, in having Croatia on the map as well. And yeah, we're preparing for the 2025 edition now with, we're hoping to have over 100 events in all around the world. Now we have ambassadors per country, so any industry business, individuals or family and your friends, marina, sailing schools, anyone is welcome to join. And it's free to join the campaign. We just asked to host a little event, yeah, and make the industry enjoyable and accessible for all of us.
Cool. So, guys, anyone who wants to do an online or offline event and just do it for free and promote a bit the industry, you're doing a big step for all of us. Where can people follow the World Boating Day online?
So there's a website, worldboatingday.com, and we've got the Instagram channel, which is the most active at the moment. It's at World Boating Day, simply. And yeah, we're looking forward to posting more videos. Actually, what I was saying before is we're creating a lot more video content, especially with our ambassadors. So, head over to the channel. There's a whole lot of different accents and people from different backgrounds that you can hear there on why they love the movement. And I want to say it's also like a community building that we didn't see that that was going to be the case, but last year in the last edition, we really saw that happening. It was amazing having all these people really coming together from an industry perspective and celebrating together.
That's so great to hear. And then also moving a bit down your LinkedIn profile, scrolling
Mhm.
down, I unraveled a very interesting thing, and that is also that you're a yoga instructor. So can you tell us a bit about your yoga journey?
Yes. I trained as a yoga instructor, let's say in 2018, just before COVID hit. I was living in Australia at the time. And it's been a very interesting journey for me because that questioned my whole belonging to the yachting industry. After almost 10 years in it, I started questioning what was my purpose and, what was the industry doing in terms of sustainability and how we're moving forward with what the planet is going through effectively and what all the climate scientists are telling us. So it was a very personally turmoil time. I trained over a year, was going every second weekend while having a full-time job still in charter management. And I realized that I didn't want to teach at the end of the day. And I was just learning a lot more about the philosophy of living. It was really interesting. It changed completely the way that I live my life overall. And it led to a bit of a crisis as well. So after a bit of reflection, I actually decided to leave my job in charter management. And I left Australia as well, and I moved back to Europe. It's been like a unwinding journey all along, but I moved back to Europe 2 years ago and found basically Super Life Foundation and Water Revolution Foundation. I had been knocking at the door of Water Revolution Foundation for quite a few months already, and yeah, I was really excited when they offered me a position in August this year. So long-winded answer to what was like originally a personal journey of just learning more about what I considered a sport, let's say, at the time, which now I consider completely a way of life and a beautiful philosophy to live by.
Yeah, I agree. And I think this has been a very gorgeous journey, just showcasing to people that basically you don't need to figure it out everything
Mm.
in the beginning. At a certain point, you're going to maybe meet a mentor or meet a fellow colleague or start yoga classes or do anything which will change your perspective and eventually maybe like you end up in something that is very purposeful, but it also fulfills you both on a personal slash spiritual and career level too.
Mm. Absolutely. Actually, jumping on the mentorship side of things, I think that's a great way to enter the industry or to evolve in the industries to get mentors. And there's just so many people that are willing to share knowledge, myself included, on, the intricacies of the industry, but also the amazing ways that things can be done differently. Yeah, I have benefited from mentorship in so many ways in my career, let's say. So I would highly recommend that.
Well, I usually ask for the last question, what would you recommend to young people, who are struggling or who need just a bit of push or need to know how to enter the industry? So I think this has been a great answer. So just to seek mentors and try to find people who would help them with their start of the career or their career switch. So
Yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. Asking questions is the way, I think.
True, true. And then making the most out of the answers which you get.
Exactly.
And this wraps up our fifth episode. It has been very empowering, Laurie. Thank you so much. And
Thank you, Anna.
For you guys, as usual, you can follow us on Instagram, where our username is WN_Women in Nautica, and on LinkedIn, it's simply Women in Nautica. Thank you for staying in touch and being with us on this journey, and stay tuned for the 6th episode. Thank you, Laurie, and have a great rest of the day.
Thank you.